Welcome back to the Joe Miller Show, KOAN Hot Talk, 1080 AM, 95.1 FM. We're honored to have with us KrisAnne Hall. She's been on this show before. She's an attorney, former prosecutor, travels the country teaching the Constitution. I heard her at a 10th Amendment dinner, got a standing ovation from legislature. I think the governor was there, the state I was at the time. Taught state legislatures throughout the nation. She's given classes to Arizona, Utah, Oregon, Kansas, and now in Idaho. Legislators that want to know more about their rights vis-a-vis the federal government, the proper application of the U.S. Constitution. KrisAnne is a disabled Army veteran, Russian linguist, mother, pastor's wife, and patriot. KrisAnne, thank you for taking the time to be with us to talk about today the Magna Carta.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm excited because Monday, the Magna Carta turned 800 years old. That's sort of a big deal for history geeks like me.
So this Monday or last Monday?
Just this June 15th.
Awesome. All right. And so tell us why a document 8 centuries old has any relevance at all to freedom-loving Americans.
Well, you know, it's the Magna Carta is one of 5 fundamental documents that built our Constitution. Our Constitution wasn't invented or written in 1787. It was the product of over 700 years of history and 5 foundational documents that our framers called Liberty Charters. And these Liberty Charters made up their Constitution. And without the Magna Carta, Joe, there would have been no Declaration of Independence. It was Clause 61 of the Magna Carta that says that the people have a right to petition the government for a redress of their grievances. And it's because of Clause 61 that Thomas Jefferson and our framers were able to use a Declaration of Independence as a tool to petition the government and to determine, their lack of response.
Before we get into too much more detail about the correlation, let's go back even a little bit further to actually its origins. Because a lot of folk, Magna Carta, 800 years old, they don't teach this, and I don't think they teach it in history anymore. Or if they do, it's probably just a fleeting reference. How did it come into being?
Well, in 1100, there was a king named Henry I who had murdered his brother to become king. And that didn't make him a popular king. So he had to do some things to assured people that he was going to be loyal to the people and he was going to be a good king. And the very first thing that he did, or one of the things that he did, was he signed a document called the 1100 Charter of Liberties. And the 1100 Charter of Liberties promised that government would never be evil and oppressive again, that heirs of an estate wouldn't have to purchase their estate from the government before they could receive it, that men who made and enforced the laws would never be allowed to be above the law. It also declared that our principles of separation of church and state, that the church will be completely free from government control. And 100 years later, we have a king named John, who is a massive taxation king, who's executing people for not paying their taxes and violating the 1100 Charter of Liberties by taking control of the church. The people rebel against John, and that's how we get the Magna Carta. The Magna Carta is the people standing up to the king and saying, you made us a promise in 1100 that kings would never be evil and oppressive anymore. You obviously have no idea how to keep that promise. So now we, the people, are going to take the government in our own hands. We're going to create a committee of 25 men who will have the authority to sit in the king's court and tell the king, no, you can't do this because it breaks your promise. This is the beginning of our representative government. The Magna Carta also declares there'll be no taxation without representation. Our 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th amendments in our Bill of Rights come from clauses 38 through 40 in the Magna Carta. And we talked about Clause 61 of the Magna Carta, which is the last clause of our First Amendment, the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of our grievances. John's going to sign the Magna Carta because he's got a sword at his throat. And that's why our framers decided that they wanted to have a republic instead of a kingdom, because kings only hold promises as long as you keep a sword at their throat.
How often did the panel of 25 meet to, weigh judgment against the king and whether or not the king violated the Magna Carta? Did that happen more than once in English history?
They were actually physically located within the court. So when the court was in session, they were there as well. But you have a period of 400 years after the Magna Carta was signed where the people are continually having to battle with the kings and the governments because We had kings who didn't appreciate them, who were constantly dissolving Parliament, and then the people would have to fight to get Parliament back. We have a king in 1625 by the name of Charles I who dissolved Parliament because they won't approve his spending.
Wow. So the Magna Carta was considered to be, from the Patriots' perspective, the founders' perspective, to be written in stone. I mean, there was no disagreement with it. It was a foundational document that then gave rise to the Declaration of Independence and even many of the amendments of the Bill of Rights.
Right.
Was there other impact that the Magna Carta provided as well?
Well, sure, because the Magna Carta was a launching pad for other. I mean, the Magna Carta, you said, was written in stone because it was their constitution. And the Magna Carta was the launching pad for three other documents. One is the Petition of Right of 1628. And each time through British history we have new liberty charters, they became part of the Constitution. And because of Clause 61 in the Magna Carta, we get the Petition of Right of 1628, which is where we get the understanding that due process is not something that the government can give and take away based on their convenience. We get our Third Amendment from the 1628 petition, and we also get the people declaring that liberty is the inherent possession of men and not the gift of government, something apparently Chris Cuomo missed in his history class. But then we get, from there, we get the Grand Remonstrance of 1641, which lists a whole new set of grievances, establishing more liberty to the people, declaring fiat monetary system as a form of treason. It even talks about, believe it or not, sustainable development and the same principles that we're seeing pushed by the Green Movement and the United Nations, and they called that treason. And then from the 1641 document, we get the English Bill of Rights of 1689, which is yet another advancement in the British Constitution, the very update that our framers would carry to our continent, their extension of the Constitution. And it's amazing. That document declares, at the time the king was James II, that when the king is writing law, overturning law, and setting aside law, when that is a power reserved to Parliament alone, the only result is the complete destruction of liberty. Because, Joe, they had separation of powers in 1688. We didn't invent that. And they said when the executive branch is writing law, overturning law, and setting aside law, when that's a power reserved to the legislative branch alone, that violates separation of power and is the complete destruction of liberty. So apparently even in 1688, they knew executive orders were wicked and evil.
Yeah, I mean, the nature of man doesn't change over time, does it? Appreciate your efforts with respect to this, KrisAnne. We'll put up your essay at restoringliberty.com later tonight. Hopefully get this podcast up with it. Appreciate your efforts. Of course, the Magna Carta not just impact on the United States, but on a number of other countries within the British Commonwealth, of course. Still, of course, championed in Great Britain itself, I assume, in their celebrations ongoing in that nation as well. Again, appreciate you highlighting that for us, KrisAnne. Appreciate the efforts that you're taking to educate legislators across the United States, and we'll keep following what you're doing. Keep us informed. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. I want to invite everybody to go to magnacarta.us. We have written a modern Magna Carta for the remonstrances of the people of the United States of America.
Fantastic. We'll put that link up with your article. Again, restoringliberty.com. We'll have KrisAnne's essay up with that link. Go to it, read it, understand our history. Stay with us. The Joe Miller Show will be back after these messages.